You're listening to ThunderQuack Podcast Network.
Hello there, and welcome back to Force Perspectives for the Acolyte series premiere episodes Lost/Found and Revenge/Justice. I am your host, Michael Cohn, and joining me, as always, the Yord to my soul, Joe Hogan.
I graciously accept this title. He is a silly guy, and I like him a lot.
Yeah, man, we are fully into Acolyte. I know it was a little bit longer of a break than we expected. We took the week off for what is it down there? Memorial Day? Is that what it was? Yeah.
Yes.
And then in the lead up to Acolyte, we were kind of talking. We're like, well, if we're recording on Mondays and you know it's going out to the general feed on Tuesday, it's basically going out the same day that the new episode drops, which seems like a bad idea.
Silly.
So we just shifted it to Thursdays. So now we'll record on Thursdays, which means that if you are a supporter on Patreon at patreon.com/ThunderQuack, you'll get the episode sometime Thursday, right? Like we'll record and then I'll edit it and post it. So probably like Thursday afternoon Pacific time, so that'd be like sort of early evening Eastern. But if not, then it'll be in the regular podcast feed the next morning. So it'll be there on Friday mornings for everybody else. And that's just like, so during the run of Acolyte, that's what the schedule will be. We'll see when Acolyte's done if we go back to Mondays or if we keep it on Thursdays. I think we'll just kind of see how we feel about it by the end. But yeah, once Acolyte's done, then we go back to the episodes being a week early on well, I have to think about it because we kind of even shifted that a little bit. But
I don't even know what we're doing anymore, man.
Yeah,
how do you keep up with this?
It's we just kind of like play it by ear, right? The thing is just if you are on Patreon, it's because you support the shows, and if you support the shows, then I just want you to have it as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But we also it's the Patreon thing. We got to incentivize everybody to go sign up or whatever. But yeah, when it comes to like this topical stuff, I want them to be out as soon as possible for everybody, right?
Absolutely.
So we just kind of play with it. But let's do a quick let's just stick our finger in the air and read the temperature of the room. How you feeling about the Acolyte after these first two episodes, Joe?
I am so happy. Like, it's so cool. It's a lot of fun. These characters are really cool. It's awesome to see 100 years, right? Not 200 years. 100 years before Phantom Menace. I don't know, I really like it. Like, I'm super into it. It's fun to not really know anything about this time period, even though like I know there's a lot of that, periphery stuff going on with High Republic, but like it's just cool for me having no real exposure to that. Just like I'm just enjoying it. Like and they're just like cool. It's a cool story. I'm interested. It's like weird. It's a little mystery. It's almost like the best parts of the prequels with Obi-Wan on his little detective missions. Like, yeah, I really dig it. I'm excited. I'm invested. I want more. So, what about you?
Yeah, I'm absolutely over the moon in love with this show. From the first 5 minutes of the first episode, I was completely in, and I knew that was going to be the case. I mean, after seeing the Phantom Menace and getting the sneak preview, we got the whole scene, like not quite the whole scene, but quite a bit of that fight scene between Carrie Ann Moss and Amandla. Amandla Stenberg? Yeah, I think so. I got everything pulled up. I need to reference back. But yeah, Amanda Stenberg, May, and what's Carrie Ann Moss's character's name? Indara. After seeing that, I was like, well, as far as the action, the fight sequences go, like obviously this is going to be top tier stuff. And we had talked about, like that there was that quote of the I think like the stunt coordinators or whatever saying, our high watermark, our benchmark was, can we do better than Duel of the Fates, right? And I saw that clip and I was like, can you have yes, you will exceed it when there's a culmination of this story at the end of it, right? When we hit the climax and we get a lightsaber duel, like a full-on lightsaber duel with this level of choreography, absolutely, it's I think it's going to surpass Duel of the Fates. But that got me more hyped than anything. It was a very smart piece of promotion for them to put out. But then the show itself, obviously starting with that, right? And starting with a great, cantina homage, right? That's essentially what that is. We're going to go into this alien bar where the majority of the denizens are not human, which is refreshing for a Star Wars show. And there's droids everywhere. It's a new world that looks a little bit different, but obviously, if instantly familiar as Star Wars. And then we're gonna go full tilt with this action, right? Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be happier.
Can I just, because you mentioned it, so I am not trying to put down the choreography in Ahsoka at all, but like I remember hearing rumors a while ago that well before Ahsoka came out, that we're gonna get Ezra, and he's not gonna use his lightsaber. He's basically gonna do like a kung fu Jedi fight style, and he just doesn't need his lightsaber anymore. And I remember being really intrigued by that and really excited for it, and then seeing it in the show, it's like, I mean, it's cool, it's fine, it's not really what I envisioned. And then seeing this show, I was like, yeah, this is what I wanted. This is what I was hoping to see. So I'm really excited. I really like this fight choreography in the show.
Yeah, I think the difference being that Leslie Headland is much more obviously she's more seasoned than Dave Filoni. She's got 2 seasons of Russian Doll under her belt, along with the rest of her history in making TV, right? But I think like she's a little bit more inclined to call in the experts and when it comes to like adapting a style, whereas I think that like Dave and John are a little bit more interested in figuring it out on their own.
We can do it.
Like there's a little bit more of that attitude of like, well, we can figure out how to do this, which I totally get, because like I'm fairly similar of like, like I'm gonna figure out how we do this, rather than go to somebody else who already knows how to do it. Because for me, I mean, like that's oftentimes just like part of the journey, right? Like that's part of the experience of creating the art. But yeah, I think that they from the interviews and stuff like that I've listened to with Leslie Headland, I think it was much more about like bringing together the right team of people in order to do this. I think also casting is a massive part of that. And I think that they went out of their way to cast actors that would fulfill that a little bit more. Whereas I think the actors, obviously, getting Rosario Dawson in there is one part of it. But I think for Ahsoka, it was more about the characterization than it was about specifically seeking out a martial arts expert, right? For Ezra. And so I you're gonna limit yourself there, right? And I mean, like Iman Esfandi has done an incredible amount of work with the choreography that he's been given, and I think that we'll see even more in season 2 of Ahsoka. But that's very different than when you bring in Carrie Ann Moss, right?
Yeah.
Who's got this pedigree, and like we know, like there's a reason why Carrie Ann Moss was cast as Indara, and it's because of The Matrix, and it's because of her specific expertise in filming this sort of stuff. I So yeah, I think there's just like a slightly different attitude there, but also what I think is really cool about it is that it kind of lends to the High Republic having its own vibe, having its own, and like the thing that's really cool about it to me is that it's like everything, like the ships, like the costumes, the fight choreography feels like Phantom Menace, but fancier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it feels so much like the Jedi that we're introduced to in Phantom Menace, only like brand new out of the box, right? Like shiny and perfect and all of that. So yeah, like to me, like that really lends to the idea that this is the High Republic, the peak of Jedi culture. Although what we know of the series is that this story specifically is the end of that, right? Like this story is their downfall, right? Like this is the first step that will lead us towards the Jedi that we see in the Phantom Menace. Who are obviously like very flawed and don't have their eye on the ball, right? Like which allows Palpatine to pull off his plot, right? So we have to get there, but I think in order to get there, the thing that has to be established first off in this, I don't know if this series is going to be multiple seasons or not. I don't know if
I don't
they've said
know.
anything.
I hope so.
I hope so too, because
I already am like all in on this.
Yeah, if we can maintain this quality level and I keep delivering, then yeah, like let's go 3 or 4 seasons with this one, right? But where we are at the beginning of this story, it has to be like these very much these notes of the High Republic from the novels and the comics and all of that stuff, but foreshadowing, right? And I think that's one of the things that was the most effective in terms of the story for me on this first 2 episodes was the way in which different characters, different generations are interacting, and you've got Indara, who we don't really get to see that much of in this one, but she'll come back in flashbacks, I think, based on the trailers and stuff, right? We see Vernestra and Master Soul. I I think that like with them we're seeing sort of like those Jedi from the that height of the High Republic, right? But then you've got like Yord and Jeki who are representing this next generation that's coming up, and you can see a little bit. You can see the dogma taking over. Like I said, Jeki especially, it's like she's very logic ruled, and she's very like but this is what the code says, this is what our teachings are, like we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that.
She reminds me of Padawan Obi-Wan, honestly.
Yeah, she's very recently. Yeah, super rules oriented, right? And then you've got Yord, who is very quick to pull out his lightsaber, and very quick to judge, and has an air of superiority.
Yeah.
Which I actually think a lot of that is going to be a red herring. Because I think as the season goes on, we're gonna start to, because we start in a place of Yord is suspicious of Osha, right? And I think that that's going to get flipped on us in the next episode, probably, where we're going to start to become suspicious of Yord.
Okay.
Because we don't know who the Sith Lord is, right? And so I think they're gonna play that out as like, could Yord be the Sith Lord? Could he be involved in this plot, right? But I think it's going to be a fake out. Like I think that they're gonna try and lead us down that road. The other thing that's going on is Chimere, Manny Jacinto's character, is, you know, sort of this bumbling, sort of like quiet, shy guy, and then he has these little moments, these little turns where he's not that character for a second, and we see presumably the real Chimere. And that's leading a lot of people, myself included, to suspect that he is the Sith Lord.
Wait, which character is this? Because I'm not sure.
May's the guy that May is with, the apothecary in the
okay, gotcha.
I know we're still learning the character names and stuff, right?
Yeah, I don't know the actors' names. I barely know the character names.
Yeah.
So like I've gotten most of the Jedi names, and I have May and Osha, but like that's like it. And then I already forgot the droid's name. What's the droid's name?
I think it's Pip, isn't it?
Pip.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of people are on this like Chimere is the Sith Lord, right? But I think that there's a fake out there as well. Have you watched Russian Doll?
No.
Okay, you gotta watch Russian Doll.
Okay.
You need to watch both seasons. First off, Russian Doll is an incredible show. Like, amazing show. I like Leslie Headland is on another plane of existence. It's a time travel show, and it's like unbelievable. It's so good, and it takes a lot to impress me with time travel, because
I was just gonna say, it's time travel. I'm usually like,
it's one of my favorite genres, but only when it's done right, you know. But yeah, it's really good. So you should check that out for sure, because I think that if you check that out, you see the sort of stories that she likes to tell. Okay. And that will inform a lot of what I'm saying right now, because I think the thing with Chimere is, like, absolutely he is the Sith Lord. I think he's the one in the helmet that we've seen. I think the twist for the end of the season is that Chimere is not he's not the Sith Lord. He's the apprentice.
He'll be,
and that May is his Luke Skywalker, join me and we'll overthrow the Emperor, right?
His Ventress.
Yeah, exactly. So and so there will be a reveal towards the end of the season of the real threat in all of this, and that's where it's like who could that be? And right now I'm kind of leaning towards the possibility that it's Vernestra. Which High Republic fans are probably going to not like that idea, because she is from she's
like so good,
and yeah, like she's very much like she's a fan favorite character, right?
Oh no.
but the position that they've put her in narratively is perfect for her to actually be the one pulling all of the strings.
Wow. Okay.
Right, and the time gap, because the stories that we've gotten with that character are like 100 years before this, right? Like she's been around for a long time at this point. There's a very big gap, because I believe the novels are 200 years before, if not even more than that. Yeah, it's hard to keep it all straight, because I think the time period of the High Republic is 400 to 100 years before the Phantom Menace. Which is why it was like it very clearly puts this story at the very end of the High Republic, right? And that this story will literally be why, like, it'll be the demarcation point, right? Of like whatever happens, you know, and similarly of like, you know, the Death Star, the two Death Stars bookending the Rebellion era, right? Whatever happens in this story is going to be the thing that's like the that demarcation point of like, that's when the High Republic ended, was when it turned out that one of the Jedi Council, because I think that we haven't gotten, like, nobody has said it, but the way that Sol talks to Vernestra, it sounds like she's on the council, right? Like that's the vibe that I get from her. He's like, I need like permission to go do this, right?
Yeah, I had the same impression.
Yeah, so like and like, this is one of the things that I love about the show so far, is that like it has all of the intrigue and world building of the prequels without getting bogged down in it, which is what George did so well in the original trilogy, right? Is that like you get the one scene where Tarkin walks in, they're like, well, but what about the Imperial Senate? And then Tarkin's like, we don't have to worry about the Imperial Senate anymore. We've dealt with it. It's been dissolved, right? And like, we don't need to like have a scene, right? We don't need to like cut away to Coruscant and go through like a deliberation and here's a vote and now the Senate is disbanded, right? It's just a one line and then we move on. And I feel like we're getting very similar stuff politically with this one, where it's like I like that like him sort of asking for her permission, like for to grant permission for him to go on this assignment and all of that, and Vernestra being like, listen, politically, like this can't get out if it turns out like she's worried about their position in the Republic, and but like we don't need to belabor the point. It's really easy to just sort of like say one or two things and then move on. But yeah, it definitely gives me a vibe of like I don't currently trust Vernestra because she is very like administrator vibe, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like there's it seems she is not giving Soul the whole picture, right? And that might just be by virtue of the fact that it's above his station, right? Like it could be that simple, but at the same time there could be more to it, right? So I like I'm suspicious, but also like I'm kind of just suspicious of everybody except for Soul, Jecki, and Osha. Like they're the only characters right now where I'm like, okay, I trust that these three are who and what they say they are, but everybody else I'm like especially like this like these Jedi that are being targeted, right? There's obviously more to that, and we're seeing that in like their we don't know much about Kelnaka yet, right? We'll get that in the next episode, I'm sure. But in the time that we've spent with Soul, in the very brief time that we had with Indara, and obviously sort of the backstory around what's the other guy, Torben, Master Torben, we get the impression that they all have this guilt, right? I with Kelnaka as well, because Kelnaka's kind of gone into exile, right? So which is classic Jedi move. I messed up into exile, I must go. But there are sort of different vibes of how they're dealing with that failure, right? Kelnaka being in exile, Indara seeming to have sort of immersed herself, either she's like just out patrolling the galaxy, or like on put me into dangerous situations, or she's like she's ingratiated herself into an underworld type of atmosphere, right? Very obviously. And then you've got Soul, who has like doubled down on the teaching part of it, but has this sadness to him, like this very, very deep sadness to him. And then Torben, taking a vow of silence and all of that, right? Yeah, there's obviously more going on there, and I don't know. We could speculate wildly at this point, but obviously, whatever happened with May, the four of them feel responsible, and May considers them responsible. Osha doesn't have the whole story, which is, to put us in that position as an audience. We get to go through it and uncover it as she does. But the most interesting part here is that Sith Lord clearly knows what happened. That's my read of it, at least, and they're manipulating this situation in order to train an apprentice. In my opinion, in order to overthrow the actual Sith Lord, right? Like the master. So yeah, it's fantastic. We've got 2 episodes, and I'm already like salivating at all of these possibilities in the storytelling, which is, I think, this isn't to say anything negative about The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, any of the other live action series, Obi-Wan, any of that. It's just to say that like what we've gotten so far in a lot of those, and to varying degrees, Obi-Wan feels like a 6-hour movie to me. Ahsoka feels like a continuation of Star Wars Rebels and the Clone Wars. And then Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett are very much like Star Wars on TV, like in quotes, right? What I've equated them to is like Mando is for Star Wars what Batman 66 is to the DC comics, right? Like obviously we're in a modern era, so it's a little bit more sophisticated than that. But in terms of like you know, the type of storytelling that we're doing, it's like a week to week adventure almost. There's a larger thing going on, but we really are focused on the week to week adventure. And it is very campy, and it's very much about the characters, right? In the same way that like I look at the 1966 Batman TV series with Adam West, and I go like when you compared it to the comic books and everything, and to where Batman is now, it's like that's very much the vibe that I get there. This show feels to me like the first prestige Star Wars TV series. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I guess Andor does, right? But Andor is one of those ones where it's like, this is the comparison that I'm always making to Andor, right? Andor is just one flavor of Star Wars, right? Like imagine you're going to 7-Eleven to get a Slurpee and you've got all of these flavors in front of you, and there's a mixture to make a George Lucas flavored Star Wars, right? You put a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and it's different depending on whether or not you're talking about the prequels or the original trilogy. The mixture varies a little bit, right? But it's essentially the same. But Andor is like you walked into the 7-Eleven, you grabbed your cup and you just filled it with Coke. You're just like I'll just do this. And that's fine, because some people, that's all they want is Coke, right? But for me, I want the mix, right? Like I want to get that perfect blend. And these first 2 episodes gave me that perfect blend. That like this thing that I'm always talking about on these shows, about like, you've got the right amount of the Force and the Jedi. You've got the right amount of the like the wider galaxy sort of thing. You've got droids, you've got aliens, you've got the high drama, right? Like that sort of like melodrama component to it, but you've also got great humor already in these first 2 episodes. I mean, walking in on Yord steaming his cloak and he's shirtless and whatever, it's like it's such a perfect way to endear us to that character and also put us a little bit off guard for the twist that's coming, that is a fake out twist. So yeah, like I and then on top of that, dude, the number of cinematic references and homage in these first 2 episodes, I've only had the opportunity to watch them once. I wish that I would have had time to watch them twice, so that I could, and I think next week I will, because it'll only be 1 episode. So next week I'll have watched these episodes again, you know, each of them again, and then I'll watch the new episode twice before we record. But I would have loved to have actually like gone through a little bit more analytically and like written down all of the references. But there are a ton in the first 2 episodes. But my favorite of all of them is the fugitive reference. The way that shot is framed when they catch up to Osha on I can't remember, Karnak, I think is the planet.
I don't remember. I don't know.
The snowy planet, right?
Yes, yeah.
I think it's Karnak, and it's from Clone Wars. It's from season 4. I think it was where the Mandalorians were when Ahsoka finds them, right?
Is that same planet?
I think it's supposed to be. I think I read that. Yeah,
that's cool.
Okay. But they kind of come around the corner and she's against that ledge, and and it's like the big opening, and it's like, hey, like stop, right? And it's very much a direct reference to Harrison Ford in The Fugitive, Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones. But the characters aren't in the same positions, right? Because that if people haven't seen The Fugitive, The Fugitive is one of the best movies ever made. Like it's one of those. It's like Shawshank or the original Star Wars or Indiana Jones. I've now named like these are 3 Harrison Ford movies, but I think it's one of Harrison Ford's best movies. But that moment is so good with him and Tommy Lee Jones, where he's like, "I didn't kill my wife," and then Tommy Lee Jones responds, he's the U.S. Marshal that's hunting the fugitive, right? He just responds, "I don't care." Because it's like it doesn't matter to him. He just needs to bring in this fugitive, right? It's so good, and then he jumps off and whatever. But so Leslie Headland is playing with that stuff, and the reason why I'm so confident in saying this and confident in saying a lot of the stuff that I'm saying is that she does the same stuff in Russian Doll.
Okay.
And one of the great things is that in Russian Doll, she has several Star Wars references.
Cool. Okay.
Star Wars references. And I so like her working on Star Wars is like it's perfect. It's just such a wonderful thing. But yeah, I've talked a whole bunch as usual. Joe, I want to throw it over to you. Anything to say to anything that I've said, or any stuff about the first 2 episodes that's sticking out to you that you want to talk about?
I mean, the thing that I have not been online, so I don't know if there is any actual speculation going on. I just kind of watched them, and then like the last few days have just been pretty busy. My feeling is that I'm trying to piece together why May is so angry at. Okay, so it's Master Saul, Master Andara, Tobin, not Tobin, Torben. Tobin is from Ghostbusters. Tobin Spirit Guide. Torben Spirit Guide. And then is it the Wookiee Jedi? That's the 4th one. Okay.
Kelnaka, yeah.
Kelnaka. Okay. I feel like because Osha is saying stuff like, "Oh yeah, she killed the whole family, and my life was ruined because of her, but she's still my sister." Blah blah blah. I kind of feel like all of the Jedi were saying like, "Oh yeah, she died," but they probably just left her for dead because they knew if they brought her in, like, not good stuff would happen to her. Like, "Oh yeah, you have this dark side. You're gonna be in prison for the rest of your life. Better for you to just kind of be left alone and figure it out." But like, whoops. Maybe it was pretty crappy that we did that we left this kid all alone and everybody's dead and whatever. I don't know. I don't know if that's quite it, because like, if you feel so guilty that you're taking a vow of silence, I don't know what it is, but like, I feel like, I mean, there's obviously more to it than what we're getting. I think not everyone is being totally truthful. Interesting that you think Jedi Council lady, who we don't really know is on the Jedi Council. What's her name?
Vernestra Rowe. Yeah.
Vernestra. Yes, Master Vernestra. I think that's really cool. I like that theory that they have someone on the inside. That's pretty neat. I had not thought about that until now. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't have too much to say about it, just because like, it all just feels so new. I really like it. Like, that's kind of like where I'm at. Like, I really dig it. It's so early. We're just kind of like setting everything up. I don't know that Yord is a bad guy. I don't know if I can swallow that one.
I don't think that he is, though. That's the thing, right?
Okay, you think he's the red herring? He will be a red herring.
I think that in order to keep us off of Kymir as like 100% the Sith Lord, that they are going to play with the idea that Yord might be the Sith Lord, right? Okay. We have to, in order for the mystery to keep going for 6 episodes, we have to have doubt, right? But I think, like, again, sort of having listened to Leslie Headland and watched the 2 seasons of Russian Doll and seeing where that story goes and how she plays with expectations within that story, and like I said, like, having listened to her talk about Star Wars and the types of Star Wars stories that she likes and what she wants to bring to it, I very much feel that like it's a misdirect in order to at the end of the season say you guys are thinking, you overthink it, right? Like don't overthink it. It's right in front of you.
So
right?
you feel like we've already been introduced to whoever the Sith Lord is, or at least
Yeah.
the apprentice. If there's a
Yeah.
if there is an apprentice, smiley face, scary Sith Lord helmet, you feel like we've already met this character. It's just a matter of who is this character. That's where you're at, if I
Yeah.
understand correctly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically. Yeah. Yeah. And I think I think the fun in that is by making it so abundantly clear in these first two episodes that Kymir is more than what he is letting on, right?
Mm.
That he is playing a role for May and for everybody else,
Mm.
and that he
He
is this master of deception.
he does have that moment, like just before they barge in, where he's like, "You look just like her." Where it's
Yeah,
like, "Huh, you're smarter than you look."
he drops it every once in a while, right? And then
Yeah.
also like when May attacks him, he's not flustered, and
Mm.
he immediately counters her, right?
Mm.
Which is like she's I mean, she killed Indara, right? Like
Mm.
that. She is a threat. She is a very real threat as a fighter. So for him to be able to, if she was really trying to kill him, for him to be able to just stop her is a very suspicious thing, right?
True.
And that's what it is at this point, right? Like everything is just suspicious. I don't think that anything is clear as day, right?
Mm.
But if anything is clear, it is that Kymir is more than what he's letting on,
Sure.
which is a very Sith trait, right?
Mm.
That's what we would expect from a Sith Lord. It's very Palpatine, right? Like
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
Palpatine.
True.
So that could also be a red herring, though. Like that's the thing, is that I might be overthinking it and looking at Yord and going like, you're making Yord out to be super cop Jedi, right? Like I think like you've kind of got Yord and Jackie as like these, like they're very much, they are, like I said, like they're sort of leaning more towards like what the Jedi are in the old Republic era, right?
Mm.
um Actually, I should get these eras correct because they're very clear about it with at Lucasfilm now. So it's the High Republic goes into the fall of the Jedi. So that's what we're talking about, right? Like Yord and Jackie are very much like that fall era. They're like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and Mace and everything that happens with those characters, right?
Mm.
Thinking in that way of like we're space police essentially.
Mm.
Soul still has this like old school living force type of vibe, which now in context we can look at Qui-Gon and go, Qui-Gon is a relic of a bygone era, right? Like and he didn't live in that era, but he's the, like Qui-Gon is obviously like a remnant, like his perspective is a remnant of that, which is probably related to, and again, we're recontextualizing Star Wars as we go, right? That's kind of the whole fun of the thing is Yoda directly took Dooku as a Padawan. Yoda didn't directly take a lot of Padawans, right? Like
Mm.
Yoda taught everybody in the Jedi Temple in the same way that we see Master Saul, right? But Yoda directly took Dooku as a Padawan, which means that Dooku learned directly from a Jedi who was at his height during the High Republic, right? So
Mm.
Yoda ostensibly should embody the ideology of the High Republic, and then passes that on to Dooku. Dooku passes that on to Qui-Gon, but with this twist that Dooku is also very much like in the moment and materialistic and all of that sort of stuff, right? That makes Dooku, right? And so he passes on both the High Republic traits, but also a little bit of this, distrust of the Jedi, a little bit of the I suspicion on sort of everything, right? The stuff that makes Qui-Gon a bit of an outcast within the Jedi Order, right? So like it's really interesting to see that, and like to see this larger picture now, and then go like, okay, so that's why Qui-Gon's a little bit different from everybody else, because Qui-Gon and Master Soul, very similar characters,
Yeah.
very similar. Like
Yeah,
Soul
absolutely.
gives me so many Qui-Gon vibes. In his, like, I mean, like, first off, he took an 8-year-old as his Padawan, and it's gone horribly wrong. Right. There's so many parallels. There are a lot of parallels, and it's all, I think it's all meant to be there, right?
Mhm.
I can't wait. One of the things that I'm the most excited for is hearing some of the other voices within the Star Wars podcast community talk about the show. In particular, you guys probably already know what I'm going to say, but when Marie Claire puts out her episodes later this week, for these episodes, and does her investigation and sort of uncovering of the mythic stuff over on What the Force, I can't wait, because I can see that it's there, especially like the little girl, when we're first introduced to Soul, and he's like feel the Force, what do you see, sort of thing, and she says, like, I see fire consuming, right? Like, I know based on listening to a bunch of What the Force that that's going to be like a big thing, right?
Mm.
Because fire and consumption is a big mythic motif. um I'm really excited to see that. For me, I think, like, because I've been trying to figure this out over the last little while. It's like, where do I fit in the Star Wars, analysis discussion? What are the things that I do that I think I do well, that people are entertained by when we do the podcast? And what I've come to realize is that I think where I am best used is talking about stuff like what we've been talking about, which is like looking at the larger story, the larger narrative, and then like recontextualizing Star Wars on a grander scale, based on new information, right? Like, let's take in the new information, let's take in these new characters, and let's look at old characters and old story and plot points and stuff. And it's like, what does this new show tell us about what happens in the Phantom Menace, or
Mm.
in A New Hope, right? Like where those characters are at. I think like that tends to be like my wheelhouse. And and the thing about Acolyte is that, like, it's I feel that Leslie Headland is very much putting that stuff in on purpose, right?
Mm.
Like, that they're like, she's doing a lot of like setup for, and I think the Living Force, which I've listened to a couple more hours of it. I still have like 12 hours left, because it's an audiobook. It's a Star Wars audiobook, and it's like a 15-hour book.
It's long. Yeah.
It's long. And I'm loving it. It's so good. And I love that I'm listening to that. We just saw the Phantom Menace in theaters. I'm listening to the Living Force, and we're getting Acolyte. And so my brain is in this space right now of like, how did the council get to that point? What were the steps on the road to get us to the point where a Sith Lord could, with their support, become Supreme Chancellor, like turn them into an army, spread them thin across the galaxy, execute them all, and become the Emperor, right?
Mm.
Like how do we get to the point from the height of the Jedi to the fall of the Jedi, right? And so I'm just looking at this, and I'm drawing these parallels, and Soul is going to, I think, teach us so much about Qui-Gon, and because Soul feels like a Living Force Jedi to me. Like
Yeah.
he feels very much like that. Like everybody else is very like rules, the code, policies, right? Like, this is what we're supposed to do. Like, Yord, when he arrests Osha, is like, it's very much, okay, so we've arrested you now. We've done our job. We're going to hand you over to this droid, and they're going to take you to prison, because that's like, because this is part of like due process, right?
Mm.
Like he's like, I got to read you Miranda rights. I got to do this. I got to do that. He's very by the book, right? Because they're cops. The Jedi are cops. Just everybody get that really, really clear. This show is saying full on, the Jedi are cops. It's also saying ACAB. So like, everybody prepare, buckle up, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Don't expect the Jedi to come out looking like heroes by the end of this story. They are not. But then the way that he comes back, like when Soul shows up, one of the first things he says is like, I messed up. I should have brought her in myself. Right? Like he immediately, in the presence of Soul, is like, you taught me not to do this. Like, you taught me not to just like lean back on procedure, but to trust the Force, right? And so you kind of, without them saying it, without anybody getting into it, you get like that repentant Yord who's like, if I had trusted my instinct instead of, because I think what he was doing was suppressing his emotions, right? Because he knows Osha, because obviously like they came up together, right? We're in the temple at the same time. So I think like there was a lot of him being like, listen, I'm here to do my job, and I can't let my personal attachment get in the way, because I'm a Jedi and I'm above that.
Yeah,
right?
That was the impression I got.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna get a lot of that with Yord, of the I'm above that, I'm better than that, I'm better than this, I'm better than them, I'm better than whatever, right? Which is a path to the dark side, which is what is going to be the red herring of, it's the pride cometh before the fall. So and Yord is very, very, very prideful. So but that like that simple interaction told me so much about Yord's relationship to Soul and Soul's relationship to all of his Padawans. Because I don't know, did we get was Yord specifically Soul's Padawan, or is it? I think maybe it's just because Soul teaches everybody in the way that Yoda did.
Yeah,
right?
that was my impression. I don't think he's actually Yord's Padawan. But
Jecki is Soul's Padawan, right?
Yes. Direct Padawan, yes.
Yeah. So like it's I think that's also one of the other things that we're going to get through this, is that like what happened during the Clone Wars is like we ended up with these little like couplets sort of thing, right? Like these two Padawan, like this Jedi and Padawan went off on this and this, and like it separated the order. And at that point it's like, then that's one of those things that leads to the Jedi being a little bit more like dogmatic and a little bit more like, oh, this is the right way to do things, right? And a little bit more sort of arrogant, right? Because without that diversity of training, they sort of become a little bit like tunnel vision, right? So I think like that's one of the things that's sort of at play there, as opposed to the High Republic era, where there are more Jedi at this point in time. So more than a Padawan and a master are going to be assigned to a case, right? We're going to get sort of multiple Jedi together, and as a result everybody kind of learns from everybody, right? But which is a little bit more proper. And it's funny because it's actually like it's a little bit closer to George's original vision of it, and that sort of thing. I think that Leslie Headland has done so much research and she's put so much thought into this stuff, and that's where it's fun for me, and the type of Star Wars engagement that I like, where I get to like go, what is here, what am I seeing, and how much of this is intentional and how much of this is me reading into something or like adding my own layers on top of it. But yeah, it's like that is probably the part of it that I am enjoying the most, is how much there is for me to sink my teeth into, both in terms of like the direct story of the show, but then also in like that sort of macro scale of Star Wars
analysis.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up, but before we do, I want to ask you, because I have some of my favorite characters. It might be glaringly obvious to people at this point who I'm gonna say. who are you liking, and we'll just leave it at that. Who are you liking? Like, which characters are you the most interested in at the moment?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I really like everybody. Like, there isn't anyone I'm like, oh, this character's annoying. I want them to go. Like, I can't wait for this character to die.
That's
like,
why I like
nobody.
shift. You saw I shifted there where I was going to be like, who are you liking and who? And I was like,
Yeah.
first of all, we don't need to get into who we dislike because that's dumb. But second of all, there is no answer to that question because so far everybody is great. All these characters are awesome. Fascinating. But who's standing out to you right now? Like, who are you gravitating towards?
Soul is awesome because he's like, I mean, you nailed it. He's like precursor Qui-Gon, right? Like, Soul gets it. I really like Yord, but I like him because he's entertaining, not because I think he's like the ideal Jedi or anything. And I can't remember his. Actually, I really like Osha and May. I really think like it was a cool idea to go with twins and like this whole like weird intrigue mystery thing with the two of them. I like both of their person, and it's the same actress, right? Like they're supposed to be identical twins. She's crushing it because they feel like completely different characters. It's really awesome. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to go through everybody really quickly. Yeah, I guess the only one I'm just kind of whatever about is Vernestra, but she just feels very like stoic, and I think she's supposed to, right? Like you suggested that, like she's been around a while, she's in a position of authority, so like, you know, we know what we know about the Jedi Order at this point, so she's just gonna kind of be like, well, the rules say this, so you know, whatever. Yeah. What about you? I feel like it's obvious, but what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I am very obviously gravitating towards Master Soul as well. My love of Qui-Gon is transferring onto this character, but then also Lee Jung Jae is just, I think, crushing this performance. There's a depth to that character already in 2 episodes. I mean, like honestly, instantly when he comes on screen, from his very first scene, there's a depth to that character that I think is grounding the show more than anything else for me. Like just that the reality of his characterization, the sadness, right? Like even when he's smiling, there's still underneath that this darkness that's there, that you can tell that he's wrestling with, but he's also kind of like he's learned to live with it, right? And I think like that's going to be the thing with whatever has happened, whatever unfolds in this story. It's like the others have tried to hide from it in different ways, whereas Soul has embraced what happened and he lives with it, and that's how it comes out, that's how it manifests, is that he just carries this grief, right? And he's trying to teach that to Osha, and I really, really like that. I really like that dynamic of the character. But then also Chimere is so fascinating to me. I love a good, you know, I sort of like mimic, you know, that deceptive type of character. And it's like there's like it's kind of like a drunken master sort of component to it, as well as like a reverse Yoda, right? Like this is not necessarily a reverse Yoda, I guess, because a reverse Yoda would be you start as a Jedi master and then you turn into a goofball, but like an inverted Yoda, right? Like the shadow version of Yoda, where he is very much playing this unassuming sort of hapless character for everybody that's around him, and then every once in a while the real Chimere shines through. And yeah, if it turns out that he is that Sith Lord with that just that banging new helmet, dude, it's such a good design. This like the smile on, like it's just cool. It's real, like that is Star Wars design. I'll say this about the whole series so far: this show is Star Wars design at its absolute best. And I mean that full stop, absolute best. This show looks every bit as good as any one of the movies visually. Like I think in terms of like the effects and the design and everything, I think it actually exceeds quite a bit of Star Wars. Like I from what we've gotten so far, when we see the Jedi Temple again and it's 100 years before the Phantom Menace and it's different, but it's different and it tells a story. When you look at it visually, you're like, it's not a palace yet.
Yeah.
Right? It's very much, as a matter of fact, it looks very much like a police station. And the activity in it is very much like a police station. You've got like those towers in the center, you've got the beginning of the pyramid, but then all of the sort of like those landing pads, right, around the perimeter of it imply a lot of activity, right? It implies that the Jedi are coming and going, that they are across the galaxy, that they are like that this is GCPD, right? This is where we're operating out of, and we're and to police the galaxy and keep everybody safe. And with the best intentions, but that corruption is going to be at the core of it. And I think like that's going to be a through line on this, is that which is why I'm leaning towards Vernestra being the Sith master, right? Is that it's like, I think what we're going to find out is that like, oh, the reason why the thing that primes the Jedi for Palpatine is whatever happens in this story, right? Yeah, so good. And I get so much of that inferred by the design, which like is such a great thing. Pip is also a character that is definitely standing out to me. I love that little droid already, and I'm just like, don't let Cassie see it, because the second that she does, she'll be like, where do I get one?
Yeah, that's it.
And I like, listen, Lucasfilm, Disney, I particularly the parks division guys, we're kind of hoping to get to Disneyland at some point later this year. By the time that I get there, if there is not a Pip toy, I'm gonna be upset. I'm gonna have a problem. I'm gonna have to write a formal letter. Like,
when
so
are you
make
going?
it happen. We don't have a plan yet. We just have been talking about like, can we? We're kind of at that stage of like, is there really a real way that we can do this? But hopefully, we're kind of hoping to do it before the girls start school, because Cassie starts kindergarten in September. So. So yeah, we're maybe in that zone, but yeah. So I'm really hoping that by the end of this, the run of this season, that we've heard that there's some stuff coming to the Disney parks and whatever. But because the droid, what is it, the droid factory or whatever, in Galaxy's Edge, it's like Pip is a perfect toy. He's a little like data pad droid that has like a screwdriver and a fire extinguisher and a spot welder.
We didn't say it, but he's the show's little guy.
He is the show's little guy. But this is the thing. Here's the thing, Joseph. He's not the only little guy in this show.
Who else is a little guy? Well,
Chimera is pretending to be a little guy.
Sure.
Right? He's absolutely, he is pretending to be a little guy. Yord is a little guy. Yord is baby girl, as everybody is saying, which means that Yord is a little guy. He is a little guy.
That's really funny.
Jecki is a little guy pretending to not be a little guy, right? Like Jecki very much doesn't want to be seen as a little guy, but is a little guy. Soul has the heart of a little guy, but with that sadness, right? Like Soul would be a little guy if not for whatever happened. And that the Padawan on Olega, right? Like the when they get that, where Torben is in the second episode, that Padawan's a little guy for sure. For sure, that Padawan's a little guy.
The little chunky guy.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
He's like, it's kind of, we caught this ragamuffin, whatever he calls her,
ragamuffin.
Right? Like, I don't think he said ragamuffin, but
it was
that's the vibe, right?
Lines, yeah.
Like he's giving little guy energy in that moment, right? Yeah, so like the show is absolute, and that's not even like, I'm just talking about characters who have names. Well, Olega Padawan doesn't have a name, but I'm just talking about characters who deliver dialogue, who are consequential to the story. Forget all of the dudes in the background and the little droids all over the place. We see a High Republic Gonk droid in one shot when she comes out of her bunk or whatever, right? Really early in the first episode. Yeah, man, like the show is absolutely chock-a-block full of little guys around every corner. I mean, the bartender, it has a literal child that is a little guy, right? Like we get
Ah,
there's so much. There was so much in this, and that is at the end of the day the reason why I am vibing so much with Acolyte. I know that, and it's funny that like I kind of held it back right here until the end until you brought it up, but yeah, it is like the show is it's little guy aware, and that's all I'm asking for, right? Is like I just want my Star Wars to know, acknowledge, and include the little guy, because to me it like that is the most important component, and I'll tell you why it's the most important component. At the end of the day, these stories are they are meant to be geared towards adolescent viewers, right? That's what George intended. That's what he created with all 6 of his films. That's what's going on. That's why you introduce the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi, right? Like that's why Salacious Crumb sits at the foot of Jabba the Hutt, because although Jabba is a terrifying monster, this slug monster, and he's going to feed you to a dinosaur dragon, right? All super scary stuff. As a kid, an 8 to 12-year-old watching that movie, I'm okay because Salacious Crumb is there and Max Rebo is there, and like there are these, and R2 is there, and there are these other characters that are all just kind of there, and they're not combatants, they're not powerful, they're not like these big things, and but they're there, and so then I can also be there, right? As a
yeah,
kid I can also
yeah.
be there. It makes it accessible, and I think like Andor is specifically not accessible, and it's not meant to be accessible to a younger audience. It's the thing that rubs me the wrong way about it. It's not that it makes it bad, and I'm always trying to be really clear when I say that. It doesn't make the show bad. It just makes it something other than Star Wars to me, right?
Mm.
Um, which is why I always say it's like Andor is a really great Blade Runner show, right? If you just twisted a couple of knobs and got rid of the Star Wars elements and just made it part of the Blade Runner universe, it would be a perfect show for me, right? I would not have any problem with it. But if you tell me that it's in the Star Wars galaxy and then you don't have regular appearances from little guys, then it's like I'm going to be disappointed, I think is my point,
Mm.
right? Is I guess that's my expectation of a Star Wars story, and when that expectation isn't met, I'm disappointed by it. Going into season 2 of Andor, I probably won't have that problem because now I know exactly what to expect,
Mm.
right? So I'll probably be a lot more positive on season 2 of Andor, but I am over the moon with Acolyte, because Acolyte, this was the same with Ahsoka, right? Ahsoka was such a wonderful experience for me because Ahsoka was also full of this sort of Star Wars stuff, because I know that Dave gets it, right? Um, but yeah, this show is just like wall to wall. It's wall to wall. Every frame has a little guy in it, and so it makes it some damn near perfect Star Wars for me. So yeah, I'm so excited for this next episode. I'm really excited to get to know Kelnaka, who being a Wookiee is until further notice a little guy, right? Like I think that if we know anything about Wookiees, it's that every last one of them is a little guy, except for that one Wookiee in the Chewbacca comic that was the albino Wookiee that was like an outcast from the rest. Do you know the story that I'm talking about?
I don't think so.
They did a story. They did a comic series, a mini series, right after they killed Chewie and Vector Prime. That was like it is basically like it's Han sort of going across the galaxy and like getting these stories about Chewbacca.
Oh.
And one of them is about like on Kashyyyk. It's one of the reasons why Chewie left Kashyyyk, in the Legends canon is that there was this other Wookiee in the village, and he's like albino. He was like all white fur with red eyes. And the thing is that Wookiees have claws, right? Like Wookiees have sheathed claws that they don't use. It's like it's like a holdover from their ancestors sort of thing,
Okay.
and from when they were more like primal and warring, right? And modern Wookiee society doesn't use their claws like as like a point, right? Like it's a whole cultural thing. But this other Wookiee does, right? And attacks Chewie at one point, and they have a fight. And I think it's been so long since I've read it, but I think maybe at some point Chewie unsheathes his claws. He doesn't use them, but like it's sort of like it gets to that point, and it's at that point that it's to explain why he would leave his family, right? Like I think that was sort of the thing. It might have been that. It might have also just been like, because I'm pretty sure he ends up killing that other Wookiee, right?
Oh, okay.
And so there's sort of like a I can't stay now, like I have to go, and goes out into the galaxy and finds Han, and then sort of like that's his atonement, is to protect Han, which I think still works with the canon, like the current Star Wars canon. You can still believe that that's part of the backstory, but yeah, like he's the only Wookiee that I would say to you is not a little guy, and that was the problem, is that all the other Wookiees are little guys. That's they're gigantic little guys. Because Chewie is one of the littlest guys in all of Star Wars, right? I don't care what you smell. Like that moment is like, yeah, he could rip your arms off, but he's scared of the whatever. Yeah. Little guys, that's my Star Wars thesis. And if it done got a little guy, it's missing I'm not gonna say it's not Star Wars, but it's missing a major component of Star Wars for me.
But
and it's
this
like you
one
can
does. This one's got him.
It does. This one does. Because yeah, like you can not have Jedi, you can not have the Rebellion, you can not have a lot of different things in Star Wars, and I'll still be okay with it. You don't got a little guy? I don't know, man. I question why you're making a Star Wars story. That's my thing. That makes me sound like I'm questioning Tony Gilroy. I'm not. Tony Gilroy's doing a great job with the story that he's telling, and it exists for a reason. So I give it a lot of leeway. But
well, hopefully we get a little guy in Andor season 2.
Hopefully we get some more little guys. Yeah, hopefully that's what we get. The thing is, we've gotten a bunch in an Acolyte already, and we've got more on the way, dude. We've got more on the way.
It's awesome. It's
there's
so good already.
I can't remember the character's name right now, but I saw a Funko Pop of him. I think it's Bazal or something like that. I can't remember, but he's an alien and appears to be a smaller, like a diminutive alien of some type. And furry and cuddly and very Star Wars. And so yeah, I can't wait for more of this show. Crystal came home last night and sat down on the couch, and she went, "Is there more of that show to watch?" And I was like, "You're gonna need to be more specific. I don't know what you're talking about." Because I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like it didn't even occur to me that she was talking about Acolyte. She was like the show that we watched yesterday, meaning like Tuesday night, right? And I was like, "You mean like the new Star Wars show?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "No, it's week to week. What do you think premiere means?" Like I told you, I was like, it's a 2-episode premiere. And she looked at me and she says she wasn't mad at me, but I don't believe her. But she like kind of had this scowl on her face and turned back to the TV and grumbled. And I was like, "Are you mad? Like, are you mad at me, or are you mad at the show?" And she's like, "I'm mad at the show." And I was like, "Oh, okay," because she's mad that she can't just watch more of it now.
Sure.
And Crystal is not. She doesn't hate Star Wars. But like it's not her first choice for a lot of things. I begrudgingly drag her along to a lot of Star Wars stuff. And she usually ends up having a pretty good time. But this is one where like she's in. She's all in on this one. I mean, she really liked Ahsoka as well, but so I think like that to me is one of the best indicators of like this is a good show. This is a good show, because if it can keep Crystal on the hook and going like, when's the next episode, then that's a pretty good show, because she just doesn't care in general about most shows. Like she's just not that type of person. It's how we balance each other out. But because I'm obsessive. But yeah, I can't wait for the next episode. She can't wait, and I know you've also said that you're excited. So it's good. I think this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be a fun. I guess it'll be 5 more weeks, right? Because it's 6 episodes, and we got the first 2 already. So
then wouldn't that be 6 more weeks? It's 8 episodes, right?
is it 8 episodes?
Yeah, it's 8 episodes, I believe.
Oh, that's even better. I thought it was 6. It's 8 episodes.
It is 8 episodes. So we've got 6 more weeks of fun.
6 more weeks. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You're right. 6 more because 7 in total. Awesome. I'm excited for it, and then there will be a little bit of a break, and then we get to talk about that new Lego Star Wars. But yeah, man, this is I've Star Wars fans are eating good right now, especially prequel fans. It has just been prequel palooza lately, and I'm loving it. I love how the narrative has changed around the prequels and how everybody is now like unabashed about it. We don't have to equivocate and go like, yeah, well, like, yeah, they're flawed movies, but I still enjoy them. No, they're just awesome, and I love
like
them
now.
Yeah, I just like them. It's fine. And if you're one of the people who's still out there telling other people that the prequels suck, then you need to watch some newer YouTube
watch
videos.
Those. If you want to watch Star Wars for the first time, don't watch the prequels. Skip the prequels. Shut up.
Yeah.
Shut your face. Let people like things.
Yeah. And I'll just say this going out, we got through the whole episode. We didn't talk about it. There's a lot of nonsense going on the internet right now, as there always is with this stuff. But this show, because it's got a person of color that is also a woman at the center of it, and like the whole the main cast is either a person of color or a woman. Right?
That's scary to me.
And yeah, you got a lot of white guys who think they're being replaced, and they're really upset that Luke Skywalker isn't being a bad guy but calling himself a good guy. That's what they want, right? What they want is Dark Empire. But anyways, right. Which Dark Empire is great, but that's not what we're getting. That's all they want, and they're mad about it. But what I will say is, I have not seen any of it, except in the rare instances where I've like turned over a rock to see if they're there. By which I mean opening up the comments. I on posts that are otherwise. I mean, like, the posts that are positive generally have other people underneath it going like, yeah, Yord Horde for life. Which is what the Yord fandom is called. I'm on the Soul Patrol.
Oh,
yeah, I'm with the Soul Patrol, but I know a lot of people are in the Yord Horde right now. So,
that's funny.
But yeah, I if like those more neutral looking posts that are like, what do you think about about the Acolyte, right? That are like sort of engagement bait. You go into those comments and there's a lot of nonsense in there. But my point in all of that is, we're gonna do our best not to get stuck in that mire as we have in the past. But B, you can also stay out of it by just like curating your social media timelines, and that's just liberal use of the block button. Don't feel bad about it. If somebody is saying stuff that bums you out, or is like triggering in any way, or like upsetting in any way, just block them. And that goes for both sides of it, because this is one of the other things, is that you'll also get the toxic positivity side of Star Wars with the people who are like, you can't criticize anything, right?
That's silly.
Which is to me, like, that just fuels the fire of that other side, of the fandom menace side of it. So like, I have just in the last couple of years just started liberally blocking both sides of that. So I don't see the toxic positivity stuff of like everything Star Wars is great all the time. But I also don't see the everything in Star Wars sucks. So yeah, I'm just generally seeing intelligent, interesting takes on the characters, a lot of speculation and that sort of thing. And so my time on the internet right now is very good.
It's pleasant. You're having a good time.
Yeah, which is nice, because the experience of the last few Star Wars shows has not quite been that. There's been more, controversy from both sides with every show. This one, I'm not getting those vibes, and it's all feeling pretty good. So I'm excited. I'm excited to ride this one all the way to the end of the season. And yeah, so anything else in closing you need to say, Joe?
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
Not one of those. Not one of
Yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
questions. I promise. This is a technical question. Um, when is this show releasing every Tuesday at 9, or is it just
Yeah.
like that was just the premiere and now it's going to be Wednesday?
Midnight. No, I believe that the intention is that it's going to be every Tuesday at 6.
Okay.
I think 6 Pacific, 9
Pacific,
Eastern,
9 Eastern.
right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that they've experimented and they've played with it, right? To see what works the best. I and I think that Disney has landed on for their flagship shows. I think that they'll do this going forward. I hope that that's the case. I hope that they've learned, because the thing about it being on at that time is like that's prime time. It's great. I mean, it's a little bit early for me because we didn't end up watching it until about 8:30 at night, but um so everybody was already in the chatter phase on Twitter and whatever, so I had to avoid Twitter for a couple of hours. Not a big deal though. Not a big deal. Not like when they release it at midnight and you don't have time to watch it either at midnight or first thing in the morning. So you got to go through a whole day before you can watch it that evening, because I know for a lot of people that's kind of been the frustration, is that those of us who stay up until midnight and watch it are then, chatting and stuff, and most people are respectful, but you do get the people who are like, they just tag it spoilers and then think that that's enough, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, not everybody is gonna block the hashtag spoilers or the word spoilers or whatever. I Not everybody uses social media in that way, but so it's best to just not, right? Because
Yeah.
trust me, like I want to get online and speculate wildly about Chimere with everybody, but I'm gonna give it a couple more days. Like I'll wait until the weekend, and then I'll jump in and start like posting my theories and stuff like that on Twitter and on social media in general. But you get people doing that, and if you couldn't watch it until sort of the next evening, yeah, like that sucked. That sucked, because there's a few times where I was in that position where it's like I
Yeah.
can't stay up that late, or I can't get up early and watch it, so I got to wait until like lunchtime or something, right? And those days suck. Those days suck
Yeah.
because you got to stay off social media and you got to avoid your friends, and you know that everybody else is having fun and you don't get to be a part of it. And by the time that you've watched it, everybody else has kind of moved on to the next thing and all of that, right? So I think that they've learned that, like, if you like for peak engagement, that they should put it out at a time when it makes it appointment television, right? Like now everybody is like geared up to watch Acolyte on Tuesday nights, and it's going to make Tuesday nights a thing. So I think that's just, I think that's smart. I think that that's what
Yeah.
they should have
For
been
sure.
doing all
Yeah.
along.
Absolutely.
Um, and the Netflix model of just dropping the whole season, I think we've learned is A, not ideal for us as fans,
No.
and B, not great for engagement. Like it doesn't do well for the shows. Um, Especially with Netflix, they'll drop like 4 shows in a week, and it's like, I just started watching a show called Eric, which is Benedict Cumberbatch, um, and it's a drama. It's about a kid that goes missing in the 80s. I it's a very dramatic show. It's awesome. It's fantastic. No one is talking about it, and nobody's talking about it because it dropped the same week as like 3 other things, right? So it like if anybody is watching it, they're talking about other stuff, and it's just like, if it was week to week, then you'd have the opportunity for people to watch the first episode, talk about it with other people, and then it's like, if I don't have 4 shows with 6 to 10 episodes each that I'm trying to like burn through, then it's like I have time every week to watch 1 episode of this and 1 episode of that and 1 episode of that. It's a much smarter way of releasing things, I think. If you're going to do TV series, otherwise just make a movie. But anyways, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Cool.
You
Well,
answered my question about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's it for this one. Thank you guys for listening, and yeah, we'll be back next. We don't have episode titles in advance, so we'll be back next week for the 3rd episode of The Acolyte. See you then. Follow Force Perspectives on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ForcePOV. And join us on Discord at thunderquack.com/discord. Support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/thunderquack to get early access to episodes, leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast service, or buy merch at store.thunderquack.com. Force Perspectives is a part of the ThunderQuack Podcast Network.